All right, everyone, this is Kim, and we met on YouTube. There, you're just commenting one day, and some of the things you said just really stood out to me. Just like there's I don't know. I get excited when I find people who are interested in some of the lesser known videos that are actually some of my favorites. And so Gospel Doctrine and, my Gospel Insight series, that's like my
Yes.
absolute favorite.
Yes.
But it doesn't get a whole lot of attention because it's not quite the main thing I talk about. And so it's not quite my target audience, I guess you could say.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it seems to have struck a chord with you.
What was that?
It seems to have struck a chord with you, though.
Yes. Thank you. It feels like I finally found somebody who I can actually relate to fully, almost. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your journey to flat Earth. Are you a new flat earther? Are you like an old flat earther?
Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna call myself a closeted flat earther right now.
That's fine.
I'm okay with being on YouTube on your channel and stuff, but I'm like scared of people finding out that I'm a flat earther. But
yeah, I think that kind of goes for a lot of people out there. You're definitely not the only one.
Yeah. And I watched the video of you and your wife, and I was like, yep, I can relate to her on that. It's like, can we just not fight about this? Like,
yeah. It's crazy how sensitive people can be over that stuff. You just talk to someone just randomly on the street and like, oh, how dare you say such a thing?
Exactly. Yeah. And then like I guess the difference between me and your wife is like I'll just say stuff and I'm really excited and passionate about it, and then I'm really sensitive at the same time. So like I'm like really out there and then immediately sensitive. And so like I it's like So yeah.
There definitely is kind of a stigma, and we don't like contention, and so we're not trying to go out there and stir up all this crazy contention or anything like that. It's just kind of it's just,
and we don't like feeling judged or like people think we're stupid, like, and so anyway. But yeah, I think I basically during 2020 I think is when I kind of found flat earth, and I was super excited to get on this live with you because I'm like, I need to just share my freaking story because I haven't been able to really talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I say freaking, I don't swear, but like, I'm like, is it okay if I say that?
Totally fine. Fine. Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't swear, but I am kind of like, I don't know. So
I know. I think we're constantly trying to improve our language, especially since they changed the Strength of Youth pamphlet. They totally eliminated that, and there's a lot of shocks for me when it came to changing that. And just like they don't want to say swearing, but it's more of kind of there's a lot of substitute words, and it actually kind of like says, okay, well, we're not trying to substitute all the swear words out there.
Oh, do they say that? I missed that.
There's a different, it wasn't quite worded that way, and that was kind of my interpretation of it.
Right, yeah.
But it was much more all-encompassing, and it's just like, wow. And so
that's the vibe behind what you're saying. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I definitely am what is it? The not swearing swearer. So like I say all the other words.
Yeah.
So I get that.
But you're conscientious about kind of the concept in general, and I think that's really an important thing.
Cool. So, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Where was I? Oh. Okay. 2020. So okay, let me go way back if that's okay. So 2019, I was having my first kid, and even further back. So like school, like grade school, right? I remember being in like grade school and junior high and like hating the solar system. I just hated it. And I kind of was like repulsed by it. I didn't really like it. I didn't want to learn about it. I didn't feel safe thinking about it, I guess. And so I didn't like it. I hated science. I hated history. It was just so boring. And nothing really stuck with me with those things. And so I think I just kind of avoided the globe. I remember seeing somebody do like a project and they did like the solar system little balls and stuff. And I was like, why would you do that? Like, anyway, so I never liked it. And so there's that. And then like in high school, I always questioned like vaccines for some reason. Can I say vaccines on this?
If we could
Could I
say
say
controversial medical procedures.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what I like to say.
You can edit that part out because I
That's
don't want
fine.
to
That's
like
fine.
blocked on YouTube. But
Yeah.
okay, so like back in high school also, I had heard a couple things about controversial medicine that goes into little children. And I just always kind of was cautious about it. And I remember being at a neighbor's house and seeing their baby, and their baby kind of was like not moving really well. Like their limbs were kind of like
Stiff.
Yeah. And I remember having the thought, looking at them, I'm like, I wonder if they recently had that medical thing. And so I don't know what else, but and I was just like, huh, interesting. I wonder. And so it was kind of just always on my mind. And then when I was having my baby, I remember I had kind of gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, that's what we do. We need to do that. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't know really anything about it. So I started asking a lot of people, and I came across my one friend, and she was the only one. And I had noticed some kind of weird things in her son. So I was like, oh, if this is correlated, like that's interesting. And so I was like, hey, like, do you do this with your kids? And she's like, oh no. She's like, and so basically her son had a bad reaction to it. And so she basically taught me about it, and I learned a lot about it and stuff like that. And so I really got into that in 2019. And
it really opens your eyes to that kind of stuff. I was kind of shocked with my oldest kids there back when I was still in the dark to all that. Just like, immediately, like right after my wife gave birth, the nurses take her off and they're like, okay, we're going to go give her all of these medical procedures. And I'm like, she was just born. She was just born. Like,
what does she need?
Like, it started like right away. I'm like, and so but they do that because they can't communicate. You just, it's just all the trauma from, you don't think about that stuff.
No.
But when you wait a little while longer, and you notice this when they go back for the booster, the second shot, or the third one, all of a sudden you can see the difference. You can see the difference with your kids. And they get really fussy after that. And it's just like, wow. So I kind of made that decision with my younger ones. Just, we're going to wait. If they want to do that on their own, I want them to be able to fully communicate
totally
everything.
Right. And you want to be able to see their differences in if something were to change afterwards. And if they're a baby, you can't really tell. But a part of my cautiousness came from like a family member who blamed the V's on something that happened in their family. And so I was just kind of like, huh. And my dad and mom, they weren't completely against it, but they waited for us, and we were like homeschooled until like I was in fourth grade. And so we didn't get ours until we went to school. And so it was just kind of, it was something that was kind of in our family, like kind of like in the middle of it. So that helped. So, so then the big thing happened in 2020, and I was just like, I could just see all this like corruption going on. And I remember getting really involved with the politics, and I was really on the right side of politics for a little bit. And then you don't remember QAnon?
I remember hearing some about it. Yeah, I never really jumped really far down that rabbit hole.
Good. It was a good thing you didn't, because it's like, I think it's a form of control opposition, and also to kind of separate the conservatives from the liberals more, and kind of like to place the president that at the time as like on a pedestal more than anyway. And so after I was kind of looking into that, I was like, wait, this seems like really contentious, even and oddly, like it's like hope for no reason but like Trump. Like it was like give hope to Trump, and I'm like, that's so anti-Christian. Like what?
Yeah.
So
Trump is quite an interesting story there. And
I know.
I remember when the whole Trump election was going through, I was voting Green Party, and that was back before my eyes were open to all this stuff. Yeah, I was totally on board with the Green Party. And then my eyes have changed a lot since then. But,
now I'm like, okay, where's the center? Like like both sides are like going insane.
That's what I always like to say is, the right is saying to the left, you guys are so corrupt, and the left's always saying, you guys are so corrupt, and now all of a sudden you're both right, you're both corrupt. And so now who do I vote for? And so I don't know where I stand, but yeah, there's still a lot of principles that I like in different parties, and so I'm
Yeah.
much more independent now
Yes.
than I ever was before. Just because
Same.
I like I'm all about like the open kind of immigration kind of a thing. I'm all, I just see the border wall of the South. It's all about racism as I see it, and so it's just like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, because
Yeah.
we don't like we've got the US Canada border, and that's totally open. Like I've been to Canada before, and like, yeah, oh yeah, you can
Okay.
pass
Yeah.
through. You don't need it. You don't
Same.
even need to show a passport. You can just walk through. And yeah, that's
That's
over at Niagara Falls. And
yeah.
so, yeah, and that's a lot closer to Russia than Mexico is, and so it's just kind of crazy. And so I
Oh
just
my
kind of like
God.
look at that and just like, yeah, it's just straight up racism. That's what
Okay.
the whole border thing is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Makes
I kind of supported the Green Party because they're the most open about that. But then at the same time, there's so much about the Green Party that I disagree with at the same time too.
right.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know,
And
it's politics is kind of funny that way. But
yeah, I agree. And now I kind of look at it as like, well, aren't we supposed to take from each other and kind of find the perfect balance, like instead of fight against each other? And so, yeah, because there's things that I like on all the different sides, and it's like, and
for
things I
sure.
totally disagree with on all the different sides. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So my friend who told me about, like, we basically became friends on a really deep conspiracy level, and then
Mhm.
she kind of took hold on the politics, and I was like kind of going away from that. And then I was like, wait, everything they say that is good is like bad, and everything they say is bad is good. So I was like, what the heck is up with flat Earth? And I was really curious. I was like, that is like the most like downplayed, horrible conspiracy theory they ever talk about. And I was like, what is that? And I remember I had seen like randomly just like a video of like a get together, a meetup
Uh-huh.
on YouTube, and like this girl was like, it just makes me feel like God cares about me. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I didn't know. And so I remember thinking that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to look up flat Earth. So I found ODD pretty quick. Do you
Yeah.
know ODD? And so I found the 21 reasons of why the Earth is flat. And like immediately when basically as soon as I started watching it, I was like, it doesn't have to be this stupid, like, floating in space thing. Like, I don't have to be on this inconsistent, scary globe. Like, it was like almost like I was like, wow, there could be another way. And so I felt very hopeful, very like grounded, and like also like more trust in myself for like not trusting what it was, what I was told. And so I was like, I can actually believe that what I see. And like when I look up at the moon, I don't see a freaking rock. You know what I mean? I see a light. And so it was just kind of like, it was almost like giving me permission to think of all the things that I just naturally want to think, and felt like I couldn't. And so it was very just freeing to me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like holds a really special place in my heart. And then I went straight to scripture. That was the second thing that I did. And I was like, okay, wait, the Bible talks about the creation. Like, let's figure out what this is. And then I read all the Book of Mormon versions of it too. And I just compared them. And I was like, okay, the only thing different with the Book of Mormon side is that they talk about planets a lot. And I'm like, what is up with that? So I will talk about that later. But basically, a couple things I realized if you go on the biblical side, which is what I probably base most of my convictions on. The science stuff, I love watching it being proved scientifically, like true science. But it makes more sense to me, even just the spiritual side, I guess, So
Yeah.
I'm going to talk more about the spiritual stuff. But so my first thing was that God created the sun on the fourth day. And I was like, first of all, if the sun was what they tell us in the heliocentric, God would have had to make the sun first because it's what everything revolves around. It holds everybody's orbit,
Yeah.
And I'm like, wouldn't he have to make that first? But instead he makes the earth first, and then he makes the firmament, and then what else? And then he makes the land, and then he makes the sun. And I'm like, So that was my first
foundation. You start with the
Yeah.
foundation, then you build upon that. It's kind of,
Yeah.
and you can kind of see it going on there. You can see how the roof comes later after you build the foundation. You don't
That's
build
true.
you don't build the roof first and then build everything else.
Right.
I never thought about that before. That's a great way of seeing things. Wow. And
Yeah,
you know, that's what I love about these kind of interviews and just talking to people like you, is I get some of my best material just from talking to people like this.
And I feel the same with what you just said. Like, you build the ground first and then you build the roof. And I was like, because I was like, why was the firmament? And I'm like, that makes sense. So I totally.
Yeah. Just
The idea
that gives me
is
tingles.
so-
It gives me
Yeah.
tingles. I'm just like feeling all up and down my arms there. That's awesome.
Good. That's what I was hoping would happen. I'm like, please be true. Like, please, whatever I say, just be true. Like, I don't want to say things that aren't true. So yeah. And then the second thing.
I think
You're
about. I like to. You're talking about the Book of Mormon, and I always think about Alma chapter 32, which talks about faith being like a seed that grows within you, and it just becomes delicious unto you. And so that's kind of like, you know, this is kind of one of those delicious moments is that I'm thinking of. It's just like, wow, it's kind of growing within me. And that's really been the way it's been for me when it comes to Flat Earth since day one. Is it's just kind of, you know, taking that seed and it's just like flourished. It's just, it's just like, wow, there's always more and more to it. And I'm seeing more and more around the world that I never saw before. And and what I really like is how it just opens up so many things that I once thought were utterly boring, didn't care about a lot of, you know, geography and geology and all that stuff. Was like,
I know,
I don't really care about that stuff. But all of a sudden now, wow. That stuff is so fascinating and it actually matters.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. Like, now I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me the science, the real true science about it, because it's so fascinating. I think it's because I would assume you're like me, where truth makes sense and it's just like you just want it. And so like science, and now the true history, I'm like, tell me, like potential like Tartarian stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. And it's so fascinating. But like the stupid stuff they taught us in school, I was like, I don't care about this. And I think it's because if it's true, it feels more fulfilling to learn. Yeah.
They always said, don't let school get in the way of your education. That's what they told me in school.
What?
Don't let school get in the way of your education. And so it feels like ever since I kind of branched out, and that's what they told me in college, is don't let school get in the way of your education. And now that I've got my bachelor's degree in college over there, and but ever since I've kind of branched out and started exploring all this, I feel like I've been learning way more than I ever learned.
Right.
I guess a lot of that comes down to that personal drive. I guess you could say that the personal drive. All of a sudden, when you're kind of self-motivated, I guess you could say, you're going to go a lot farther than you do when you're just kind of going through the machine, I guess you could say.
Totally. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, things that fascinate me, I'm like, yes. Like when I learned about the medical stuff, I was like, so fascinated.
Yeah, and it doesn't just stop with the flat Earth or anything, but so much more things. As you said, like medicine and all of that other stuff. It's all very, very fascinating to me too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's so fun, and it's fun to have people to talk to.
Yeah.
I don't really have that right now, but so okay.
Did you say you're in Utah here?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're here in Utah, kind of near the Draper area.
Utah County.
We're doing our meetup on the 10th. You said you might be able to go, you might not, and so if not, that's okay. They still do other meetups there like continually, and that's just the big one of the year. And so they do like two really big ones, like one in the winter, which is December, and then they do another one in the summer, and those are like the statewide meet and greets.
I really
get
want to
you
go.
the information to Flat Matt. He's kind of the area coordinator over there, and they also kind of get things out on the Clock app as well. So that's
how I found out who you were. Because at first I was like, wait, I'm not going to go to this if it's going to, because I've gotten involved with people, with other Christians, but not LDS Christians. And they tell me that my church is satanic. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go if it's just going to be like the people who have left the church and now are flat earthers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I totally hear you on that. And there are quite a few people at that. And last year we just kind of did a raise of hand, and most of the people, I don't know, maybe not most of the people, but there were quite a few people there who were all members of the church there, and
yeah, that's what
but they were really kind of uncertain as to kind of where they stood and how does this all fit into that. And I gotta say, like, it's really hard for me when going to conference or just hearing about church news, just how frequently they say the word globe.
I know.
Globe.
Exactly.
Like, oh my goodness. And so it is kind of hard. It's
struggle.
Hard.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the video they show in our worship place, what I'm talking about, it's like, it's a globe in there. And I'm like, and so one of the arguments my friends have given me is like, I believe what we're taught in that. And I'm like, we're not even taught that. It's just what it's shown, it's just picture.
My wife went recently, and she kind of started to pay more attention to the words that they say,
yes,
and less the pictures that they show, because they're just illustrations, and illustrations can kind of be one way or another, and they change the illustrations all the time.
Yeah.
And
like I did that last time. I just closed my eyes. I was like, I was like, what do I do? And I felt the Spirit say, just close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Like, don't look at it, because it's like, what is the word saying? What's the vibe? And like, because it's more than just that. And it's like, and then you have to really logically think about it. Like, the society believes that's what it is, so that if it was shown anything else, it would not make sense to like 99% of everybody who goes. And so I really have to just logical thing out, because it bothers me. And it bothers me when, like, the prophet or the leaders will say globe, or President Uchtdorf believes he lives on a globe and he's a pilot. And I'm like, and then I'm like, how can I say I know more than them? But it's not knowing more than them. It's just, so my husband actually will say, it's because you've asked. Like, that's what he'll tell me. He's like, you've asked, and they're not asking. They're not questioning. So they're not, prophets still have to question to get answers, is what my husband says. And so that helped a lot.
Yeah. We're not claiming to be like
all knowing.
Yeah. We're not claiming to be all knowing, and something that always, we're not trying to redirect the church or anything like that. We're not trying to replace their job or anything like that. So it's nothing like that. It's kind of, we are going out there and studying geology and geography and things like that, right?
And we're trying to find what the exceptions are, because we are being deceived,
And so we don't have to go through the prophet to learn about geology, and
right.
That's kind of something. So
are
you on a time limit or anything like that?
Nope, just until my daughter walks in here.
Okay.
So we'll see. She's 3 and they're sleeping. So
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Cool.
And even if that happens, we can just pause for a second.
Oh, that's no problem.
Okay, so going back to my second thing that really stood out to me was, on the 4th day they created 2 lights, the sun and the moon, and I was like, see, the moon is a light. Like, basically it was like, I'm like, he literally says 2 lights, the greater light, the lesser light. And then I looked through all the other scriptures, and they always call the moon her light, and her light didn't shine. And then they call the sun's light his light, like his light didn't shine. I'm like, that is very separate light, like very separate light. And so there's that. And then there's a whole foundations of the earth, and the immovable, like, I don't know if it says immovable, but it just says the sturdy foundations of the earth, and the 4 quarters of the earth, and like all these things. I'm like, it just sounds so much more like flat earth than heliocentric.
Yeah.
And
in our scriptures, they use the same thing. They talk about the same things like 3 different times. It's not just one creation story, but we're seeing it like we're seeing it in Pearl of Great Price like twice.
Yes.
And so we've got like 3 times there. And so,
so
like, that tells me it's pretty significant and very important. And
exactly.
Yeah.
You're
and they're not changing things like that. And and I think I was listening to the Flat Earth Brothers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with their channel.
I'm sure I've seen stuff, but
they're kind of up there on like the top 20 anyway.
Okay.
Like largest numbers of subscribers. But they pointed out, I think it was them that an entire day was spent on just the firmament. Okay? An entire day. I'm just like, that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
That's so cool because that
Yeah.
just shows how significant the firmament is. When, what do they call the firmament in, like, if you're not a flat earther, they think it's like space or something. I don't
The
even know.
atmosphere is kind of their thing, and yeah,
Yeah,
there's like, oh, it's space and the
but
atmosphere, and yeah, I don't know.
but then they call it in the scriptures like it's glass and it's handiwork and like stuff like that. It's like, okay,
Revelation talks
whatever.
about the throne of God being on a sea of glass or something like
Yes,
that,
yes, and we're his footstool. It's like, okay, okay, there's no up or down. Like, come on. And it always says
yeah,
the heavens above and the earth beneath, the heavens above, the earth beneath, the heavens above. I'm like, and so I remember telling this to my friend my friend who got me into the medicine stuff. I had another friend who was also anti the medicine stuff, and I I I got so excited about all this. I made the mistake of thinking they would be excited too, right?
yeah.
And so, because for me, it was just so easy to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I totally hear you on that. And I'm always afraid I'm the one who's kind of annoying people because I've got, I've got a good friend who loves Lord of the Rings to death. And he's, you just mention a little bit and he'll just talk to you for an hour about Lord of the Rings. And,
Yeah,
whether you're interested or not, that's just the way he is. He's just really passionate about that. And
totally. Yeah.
I guess for me, it's kind of like that way when it comes to flat earth. Someone mentions a little bit, and, oh, I've got so much I want to tell you about that.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get too excited over something like that.
I'm the same way. And so it's been hard to stay quiet, honestly, but I don't like what it does to my relationships with the close people,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's hard because I just want to talk like you. I want to just talk about it. And so
small talk, just I've when it comes to like kind of family gatherings, I feel like I've got to sit on my hands the whole time because I'm like, oh, I've got so much interesting stuff I want to talk about, but it's not interesting to them, and it bothers a lot of them, and so I'm just like,
exactly.
How's the weather today? It's so painful.
If only you knew what the weather. It's like all this stuff.
Small talk is just
It's hard. It's hard. Yeah. So I told my friend, and I was like, she's gonna love this. Like, she's into this stuff, and she was like, oh, that's stupid. She's like, oh, that's stupid. Like, what about this? What about this? And she sent me like an amateur video of the curve or whatever. So they had like the GoPro, fish lens.
Yeah.
And she was like, what about this? And I was like, it's a fish lens or whatever. And she's like, I don't care. And so basically I was like, come on. And so now it's like, now my eyes have opened to that. And now my eyes are open to so many things just because of flat earth. And I'm like, I can't talk to her anymore about anything because
she's just like really defensive. And so when they've got their wall, like, like, we're not going to war here. Come on, relax. Just relax with me. And
and then like we kind of agreed to not talk about it, and I'm like, I honestly don't know how to talk to you anymore because I don't see the politics the same way you do anymore. And now she's just fixated on the politics and the leader and everything. I'm like, anyway, so it's really been hard. And then my other friend, she basically stopped talking to me after, and I'm like, and it's because she thinks that I'm leaving the church because of it. And and they both said that, like, they both were like, this is not what our church teaches and stuff. And I'm like, and so it was really, really, really hard at first. Still
our church teaches it. It's right here in the Bible.
And so luckily, my husband, he is, bless his heart, he's like, no, it's not doctrine. You can believe this, and like, it's totally fine. Like, he says that sort of thing. But then he's like, but don't involve me in this one kind of thing. It's like,
there's a lot of politics that goes into there too. And so it's like,
and he loves,
the church doesn't have an official political statement. And so,
And I really hope they don't get to the point where they think they need to do that. They're like, but, so I was going to say my husband, I will always bring it back to what I'm saying. So I hope that's okay. Cause I'm like, because I love the tangents, and then my brain always is like, okay, so it's good. It's perfect. I like it. Okay. So what did he say? So basically I was like, can you just look at it and like listen to me? So I had him listen to me at one time, and I was like shaking trying to tell him about it. And And I thought he's on board with like everything else on the conspiracy table except this. And so I was like, please see it, you know. And then I showed him a Dave Weiss video and he watched it and he's like, yeah, cool stuff. And I was like, okay. And I was like, so like, and he's like, no, I still don't think it's true. Like he's like, it defies all science. Like it can't, and math and like everything. And I was like, and at the time I was new to it. And so I didn't really know anything to say. I was like, well, and then we kind of, after that, got into like a little bit of a heated discussion scripturally because he was like, see, it says the earth moved and not the sun. And I was like, what? And I was like, no, because it was like the first time I'd seen it and it bothered me so much, that scripture. And then after that, I was like, okay, Matthew, like, do you believe the moon is a rock instead of a light? And he was like, yeah, or something. And I was like, okay, well, scripturally, it's a light, like very obvious light. And he was like, if it was a light, then all science is like it, then the whole thing is over. And I was like, sweet. After that, I was like, okay. And I was like, okay. And he was like, the moon landing could be fake, you know? And I was like, okay, whatever. And so after that, it was kind of like, he's like, you can talk to me about it. But like every time I do, there's like a little heat. And I'm like, I cannot let this get in our relationship, in the way of our marriage, because it's not worth it to me. But then I don't have any
things are more important than this. And
yeah.
So sometimes we get these great gems that are awesome, but we can't prioritize those over what's more important.
Right, exactly. And to him, it goes way deeper. Like he actually loves space, you know, he loves NASA, like, and he just grew up loving that stuff. And I'm like, it makes sense to that in that degree. Like I cannot push him on this one. And I'm like, one day he'll see. But luckily he is the most unjudging. Like he lets me believe it. And he kept saying, he's like, you just need to find flat earth friends. So I'm like, I know, but I need LDS flat earth friends. Like, you know, I need that. And I'm like, I don't think it exists. Like basically. But so yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to talk about what I wrote. I wrote that what I felt about the earth moving. I deleted it because I was like, I do want to keep it like, I don't know. I want to word it in a way where it's like, I did feel this, but it could be just an idea that was given to me on how it could work. I don't want it to come across as like, I think this is actually true. You know what I mean? 'Cause I don't want to prophesy about anything, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, so recently, it's my most recent prayer verse on flat earth thing. So basically I was really bothered with the LDS books saying planet so much. Like it was just bothering me because the Bible doesn't say it. It's just like the LDS versions. And I'm like, why? And so I looked up all the planets, and the moon is called a planet at one time, and the sun is called a planet at one time. The earth is called a planet, and Kolob is called a planet. Like all those things are called planets, and we would call all of those things something totally different. You know, the moon is different, the sun is different, the earth is different, and Kolob is like a star, right? But it's called a planet. And so I was like, okay, so there's something going on here where God has his own definition of what a planet is. And I can't find original except moving star. That's the only thing I can find.
Wandering star is kind of the old term for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, but it seems like different. It seems more meaningful in this term from what might have come from God, because all those things are called a planet at some point. And so I'm like, okay, first
especially during the days of Joseph Smith, it would have meant a wandering star.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was like, what is he thinking? Because he's translating these, and so if he's hearing the word planet, like what is he thinking? So yeah, okay, that's good to know.
And so that's why we see it in the dictionary as kind of an archaic kind of words, like older English kind of a thing. And so we have to kind of look at kind of what they might have understood things as, kind of what definitions that they were using. And because, you know, this is revelations that were given to him, and it's kind of putting things in language that they can understand.
Totally.
And so we've got to kind of look at these things through their filters.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Because they're going to have a different understanding and a way they're translating things. I totally agree with that.
It's funny because people say the same thing about the the Old Testament too. You know what I mean? Oh, well, they're just putting things in terms that they can understand. They're really
Right.
complicated things. And so it's kind of like an inverse thing where
Totally.
we're today, oh, well, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
We've got, oh, well, we're just putting, it's the same thing.
Like my husband said, he's like, well, it's all symbolic. I'm like, okay, it's all symbolic. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, but if you see flat earth and then you read the Bible, it's not symbolic. It's very literal. And so it's what you're saying, they're like, oh, it's just symbolic. It's whatever. And it's like, okay. So that's part of the reason why I was like, okay, let's say this Helaman 12 is not symbolic. How could it work if it, and so I had to really take out the heliocentric and say, what would happen if what would make the earth move and it wasn't heliocentric model? Does that make sense? Yeah. And so first I had to know, I had to realize that the planets were all called a planet at some point. And then, you know how it talks about time, and then Kolob is God's time. Mm-hmm. So it all kind of ties together. So I specifically asked, what does this verse mean? What does it mean? And I was like, basically, this is what I felt. That the earth has a heart, right? And it's in the center, and it's spiritual, energetic. It's the heart of the earth. And it is a motion. It is a motion that creates energy and that goes outward and upward. And you cannot see it, because I feel like you could, but you can't, is what I felt. You can't see it. And so he said pseudoscience uses this thing, and they're mad about it because they don't understand it, because it's spiritual, and they replicate it as the heliocentric spinning earth in a physical form because they want to take control of it, basically, right? Yeah. So this is all just what I felt. This doesn't have to be true. It's just ideas that I feel like I was to help me understand potential options.
Puzzle pieces. So you're kind of putting down puzzle pieces, and you're not quite sure how they all fit together. But okay, this is an idea. This is a concept, and
right. So ideas, concepts.
Take some time and see how they all fit together down the road.
And it could just be an idea to help me see how these scriptures could work together or something, in another way. See another
brainstorming.
Way. Yeah, exactly. So could be that it's, so once I learned, basically I was like, okay, so let me back up again. So the moon, being a planet, is on a slower time than the earth, is what it says in, I think, Abraham, or Pearl of Great Price. And it moves slower. So, it only moves about as slow as a month. But the sun, it moves it's our time. The sun is our time. It's hourly on our time. And I felt like the sun and the center of the earth are connected. And that's what shows our time. That's what creates our time. So it never says that it doesn't talk about the sun really in the time levels in the scripture. It just, as far as I could remember. But what I felt was that they're connected, and that's why, because they are our time. The sun is connected to the earth's time. So when it says earth time, it's talking about that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully I'm making sense. So the moon is slower, and then it goes up from there to God's time, which is 1,000 years, our time. Yeah. So Kolob is signifying the amount. It revolutions the time of one day for God, or whatever, I think. Mm-hmm. So what I felt like a planet was it was like a spiritual, it could be a spiritual time body, something that helps create the levels of time that until it reaches 1,000 years, God's time. Because I think that you kind of have to,
like thinking of cogs in the clock, kind of the
gears
in the clock.
Yeah. And I think of realms, levels and realms and stuff. It's you have to kind of slowly work up to that slow of time, I feel like. And so, yeah. So I feel like the planets and the bigger stars that we see, or the wandering stars that we see, are probably at just a different level, and their time is calculating the next level of time closer to God's time.
There's a picture I'm thinking of that shows like a picture of of God, and there's different layers in the firmament, like a whole bunch of
I know
different
what you're talking
layers.
about. Yeah,
And
that's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah. And then each of those will have a different time, and who knows what's going on at those levels. Like there could be different levels of heaven. It could be, I don't know what it could be, but
yeah, there's so much about heaven, and and I don't know if you saw that video I did on stars, the ether, and
I want to
etc.
watch that one. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one I think might kind of affect the way you view Kolob. It has,
Yeah.
it'll affect the way you view Kolob, because stars, there's so much evidence pointing to stars as being like spiritual bodies, people.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
People.
I'm wondering.
So,
I wondered about that though. I have
Yeah.
wondered about that.
and so there's a scene in Revelation that talks about having a handful of stars, and the stars and it directly says these stars represent angels. These
Really?
stars represent angels, and that's right there in Revelation. And it's just like, and I really like, I love it when they give you a symbol, and then right after giving you a symbol, they tell you what the symbol means. And that was exactly what happened in Revelation. It was like,
oh,
wow.
that's so cool.
And so there's so much evidence for Kolob actually being a symbol for Christ. It's just another name of Christ, Kolob.
I believe that. That's really cool.
In this Abraham chapter 3, it talks about the Kawakubim and all these other terms.
Yeah,
that's actually Hebrew. That's Hebrew for stars. And so I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that before. But I was kind of listening. I like to study Hebrew, and so when I kind of put that together, I was like, whoa. And so it kind of, it's not just
cocoa beam,
a new word coming out of nowhere, but it's actually Hebrew. So
yeah, okay, I'm glad you said that. And I love, because they say a lot of those words, the Hebrew words in Abraham, and so I would be fascinated to know what all of them mean, because I always try to look it up, and I'm like, am I being deceived when I look it up?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because there's so many different interpretations, and as I see it, the Bible's like a combination lock, and so every word in the English language has, most of them have like 10 or more definitions, or a lot of them anyway. 10 or more definitions. So so I've got just the word proof here, and that's got like 20 definitions for the word proof. And so which definition are they referring to? You
that's true too.
And that's just English. But on top of so you've got the English, but the English is all coming off of the Hebrew. And so this all these different interpretations.
Words that
it happens the same way in Hebrew too. They've got another 10 definitions for one word. And so
that's comforting.
Yeah. And so
reading this kind of stuff.
That's why I'm studying Hebrew, is so I can try and boil down, okay, so this word might have this many definitions, but it doesn't work the same way in English. And so I can kind of eliminate a whole bunch of the different English definitions. So I
can come to the term that matches more. So. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So
I would love
Duolingo is awesome when it comes to learning Hebrew for free. So that's what I've been.
Google does? Okay.
Or Duolingo.
Oh, Duolingo. Okay.
Yeah. I've got a free app.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's where I've been learning a lot of my Hebrew. But it doesn't quite teach ancient Hebrew, but there's other places. And I've been listening to Book of Mormon Central, and they've been diving much more into the Hebrew on there as well, which I thought was really enlightening. So,
is that on our app, the scripture app, or is it something?
No, it's just on YouTube, and it's like two seminary teachers who just kind of go and talk about like "Come Follow Me" and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, it's kind of like I always feel kind of cramped and claustrophobic when I just watch them. But I've found when I just turn off the screen and just listen to them talk, wow, I get a lot more out of it. I don't feel cramped and claustrophobic anymore.
Right. Oh, that's good, because you're not like stuck paying it.
Yeah. You're trying to squeeze these two people onto a tiny screen here or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of when I
you have room to think when
exactly
look up, and interpret the way you want. No, that's cool.
It's more about what they say rather than kind of how they look. So,
yeah. Oh, when you said cocoa beam, it also says, it calls like the sun a star, and it calls the moon, like it calls them a star too. Like it calls them stars and planets at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I was like, hey, that doesn't work in the heliocentric. And anyway, so when I asked about like the earth specifically, I felt like there were three different things. Like there's a spiritual side to the earth, there's the center of the earth, and then there's the foundation of the earth that we stand on or whatever. And so that's where it was kind of different, where the center of the earth is creating the energy that makes everything else work, basically. And it's directly connected, could be directly connected to the, where Kolob, I imagine, is similar to Polaris, where it is the center of, but I don't know exactly. That's just kind of where I imagine somehow. I guess you could say the center of the earth and Polaris are connected, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's the center, I guess.
Yeah. One of my cool discoveries lately when it comes to understanding Hebrew is the word sky, and Hebrew is Shemaim. Okay, Shemaim. And but the word water is Maim. Okay, but it's spelled very similar, and so all they do is add a sh at the beginning of the Shemaim. And so
really?
So the word water is directly in the word sky, like directly in the word sky in Hebrew.
Oh my God.
So it's like water's above, water's below kind of a thing. It was like, whoa,
yes.
You can see it. And that's kind of part of the fun thing about studying Hebrew is you can see a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to see just off of the word sky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just the word sky in English, but in Hebrew, there's so much more. It's
oh my gosh.
Really cool.
I want to like have a discussion just about the Hebrew language you're learning about. Like, because that would be very eye-opening.
Yeah, firmament is another really cool word too. And and I just learned about the word sky in just the typical dictionary.com, and how sky itself means a big arch, a dome over. And like the word sky, it's right there in our dictionary.com. Yeah, it's worth checking out.
Gosh.
It's right there. And so I was talking to someone on Facebook just about the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And it says that in the King James Version, but there's a whole bunch of other versions that say, but the sky showeth his handiwork. So it's just kind of that slight change. So it's much less controversial, but making that slight change, but the meaning is still the same. It's like, whoa, that's awesome. So,
I'm so glad you learned that, because like it would confuse me. I'm like, oh, the sky, oh dang it, but like you learned that the sky, it means firmament anyway. Yeah, that's so cool. I also love that they call the firmament heaven, because that just makes it more tangible. Like heaven is right here, and I love the water too, especially when you go to like the ocean. I haven't been to the ocean since Flat Earth, because but I can't wait to go back, because
back with open eyes.
If you realize that water is really our source of everything, like water is heaven to some degree, you know what I mean? And so when you can touch the water, it's like, oh my gosh, this is home. Water is kind of home. And
I kind of noticed that with there's so much that comes down to just especially seawater, just being salt water. Like I've heard that when we like go underwater in the ocean, the salt water doesn't burn your eyes or anything like that. It's like our bodies are made for that. And so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, our bodies are really made. You still have to watch out for sand and stuff like that. But the salt water, it's just like that's our bodies naturally handle that. That's, we cry salt water. And so, and then our hands, when they get wet, they get all pruny. So you can actually grip onto things better in the water. And so,
really? Oh, wow.
And so there's our bodies.
We just can't breathe in water.
Yeah. And then, you can't breathe in water, obviously, but
I know.
It's really fascinating, all those little kind of biological little quirks about us that just kind of seem to be harmonious with just kind of, especially with the ocean, when something happens to your foot or something like that, and you want to try and take care of your feet, you end up soaking them in salt water.
Yeah,
it's very healing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. Very interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
And maybe when our bodies are perfected and not mortal, maybe we probably will be able to breathe in water for sure.
Yeah. So when
probably just mortal
that immortality, it'll be a whole different experience. And so, it's
exciting.
Can spend all kinds of time just kind of thinking about what things will be like in the hereafter.
Yeah, exactly. Now that I have kids, though, I'm like, I need to stay here, please, for as long as possible. I can, like,
no hurry on that.
Yeah, no hurry. I need to be with my kids. Yeah. How many kids do you have?
I've got 4.
4 kids. Cool. I have 2 kids.
Cool. Exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. Kids are the best.
Yeah, my oldest is getting ready to go into 8th grade, and so.
No way.
Yeah. So,
wow, you guys look really young. I mean, you guys look.
Well, she's ahead a year. She's ahead a year in school because we did homeschool at first for the first several years, and then I told my kids, okay, well, after you turn 8,
decide.
You guys get to choose. I'll let you guys decide if you want to go, where you want to go. And all their friends were, out there, and that's where they can socialize with people. And it's really hard to let them go out into the world, but it's their choice, and I respect.
I'm really glad that you guys are doing that. I mean, that would be really hard because we want to homeschool too, and that's a good idea to let them choose at 8. Because once I was homeschooled till 9, and I was like, can I please go to school? Like, I want to go to school. This is lame. And so, but we are probably going to look into private chartered and like charter schools and stuff because of everything. But
yeah, we did K-12, and I really like that one because you can go on your own pace, and there's kind of like a little loophole that you can kind of get through and do summer school if you wanted to. And so, so if you wanted to go knock out all of the math for the next year during the summertime, you can do that. And
that's cool.
Yeah, you can just do it during the summertime and then go back. And so I love the whole, if you want to run, you can run. And because a lot of the traditional school, they won't let you do that. And so my daughter, my oldest, when she was just little, before kindergarten, I walked into Staples one day, and I saw a book for the kindergarten curriculum. And so I just kind of glanced through it, and that's really easy. My daughter could do that, just kind of, and like the handwriting workbooks and stuff like that. My daughter, I could teach her that. That's no problem. And so I just brought the book, took it home, and I just spent time with her. And my wife and I, we did homework before then. And then by the time she turned 5, she knew all the material. And so, but then we went to look at the public school, and they're like, she has to go to kindergarten, even though she already knows this stuff. I'm like, she can't just test out of it. And like, no, that's what she has to do. And so I was just mad about that. It's like, no, if that's the case, then we're not going to do that. And so we ended up going homeschool. We did that route. And K-12, we just did online school with them because they let us go at our own pace. And so because of that, we did all of kindergarten and it was all of kindergarten and first grade in the first year. And so just kind of checked off it really fast and, and flew off. And so we did that with my first 2 kids. And so it's exciting stuff.
And then you get like more kids, and it's like, oh, this is hard to keep up. But that's
hard.
Still really awesome.
That was kind of before my eyes were open to the flat earth and all that stuff. And so back before my YouTube channel was taken off, so I've kind of opened up and had to educate a lot more people, because you find all these really crazy cool discoveries and you want to share them. It's it's not something I feel uncomfortable just sitting on my hands the whole time. I feel like these things are kind of given to me for a reason, and I've got to find other people who are looking for that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, your guys' channel is a blessing to me for sure, and I'm so glad that you had that courage to share, because like I don't really at the moment, and so it's nice.
There's a lot of people that way, and I was definitely one of them for sure. And so when I found like a ton of other people last year at the big meetup in Salt Lake, or it was in Pleasant Grove last year, but so when we did that one, I was not alone. And there's been a lot of different little things in the scriptures that I was able to find. I was like, oh, wow, these could be like, people can really struggle, but they don't have to struggle over this stuff. And so just kind of sharing the word and getting it out. It really
helps. And when you're in the church too, like you said, it's just a struggle in of itself, because it's a culture of the church to believe in heliocentric. And so it's like, wait, what? Am I going against it? Or
my stepmom just hated me for that stuff. And it's just like, it really got under her feathers and just ruffled up. And so she was like, reported me to the bishop and said, hey, he's out there teaching against the church. And so like in that first situation, like I was really nervous about that, and I kind of went in and was really shy and timid and kind of scared. It's
Yeah.
like, am I doing anything wrong here? And so
Yeah.
my first experience with the bishop was kind of like, I don't know, and it felt really heavy. And so because that felt really heavy, there might have been like the bishop kind of, oh, okay, well, I think you
They
might know that you're doing something wrong. And then after I
Right.
went home, I reflected on that, and I was able to separate my feelings out. And it's like, okay, a lot of those feelings were just kind of, I was scared because
Scared,
I
yeah.
didn't know. And
Yeah.
so
And
I
he's gonna
kind of,
feel that. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know about a lot of these things, and I really wasn't sure where I stood. And so, you know, I went home, I did a lot more praying about it. And so the second time I went back to my bishop, I was able to kind of confidently look him in the eye and say, hey, you know, these are the scriptures, and I believe in these scriptures, and this is our doctrine. And I haven't seen any other prophet or apostle or anything like that come out and say otherwise. That's something they won't even address. And so if you'd like to say that there is an official doctrine explanation for these scriptures, right, I'd like to hear about it. And so I just, because I wasn't, you know, boastful and overconfident or anything like that. I just was sincerely confident and
totally,
you know, and open to,
tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that, never had another problem. You know, it was a totally different experience. And
that's so good. A couple of the prophets have said, like, they use the absolute truth versus like not absolute, and they're like, they always bring up the earth. They're like, see, the earth, it's an absolute truth that it is not flat. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did see that.
I'm like, come on.
So my understanding is he was just kind of reaching for just whatever he could pull out of a hat at the moment. You know what I mean? Just
I think at the time, I mean, Uchtdorf said it too, but at the time when the other one said, I can't remember who it was, I think the moon landing had just happened. So they were like, guys, duh, like, why are we debating?
Yeah. Now on the moon landing, that's a really interesting thing right there too, is because I don't know if you've heard of like fair.mormon.com or LDS.com. I don't remember what it's called anymore. I think they might change it, the name. But anyways, it's kind of a committee who really likes to go and study into like a lot of the deep doctrine kind of stuff. But there's President Joseph Fielding Smith, okay, once stood up and publicly announced no man would ever land on the moon. And that was his thing. It's not within our, it's not within our realm. It's not within, it's outside of our domain, and we are not supposed to go there.
Really?
So he used very specific language in talking about that. And it was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden, the moon landing, event happened.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, didn't you say that wouldn't happen? And President, he actually published this in his book, in the old version of Answers to Gospel Questions. And that was originally published. And that's why it kind of made the website. And that's why it was there. But
really? So he had to,
well, what about this? And his response was, well, I was wrong, wasn't I? But it wasn't he said a question. He didn't say I was wrong. He just asked a question. He's like, was I wrong? And so,
interesting.
Yeah. And so, there's been like other instances kind of, and I kind of wonder about kind of why the church kind of took its stance where it did on the moon landing. I think there's like an astronaut at one time who came actually and spoke in conference. It's like, why is that? And so is this like a national security issue or something like that?
Could be.
And so we need to kind of tell a lie to the world, really, in order to try to support our country for the sake of national security. And maybe it's kind of started off in that way and then just kind of snowballed effect from there. But the church is like, okay, well, we're going to set our hands on this one and just kind of let you do your thing. But I don't know. There's a lot of questions having that.
Yeah, and when you look back over the years and even up till now, you see that they have their hands tied to some degree because they have to conform a lot to society to be able to live within society and grow, And so
Yeah.
you really have to give him some grace, and that's comforting to hear those things. But it's also like, I like that he said I was wrong, wasn't I? Because he can't. There's just they can't say some things in this world, I think, and
Yeah,
unless
I'll leave a link when the video is done. I'll leave a
okay,
link.
yeah,
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 it's worth seeing.
I would love to see that, and I think that let's say they do know, that the Earth is flat, like the top leaders, they wouldn't be able to say anything unless commanded by God to do so.
Yeah.
And I think that if you think about the way God works, the church would need to be questioning as a whole. They would need to be asking too, to some
Yeah.
degree, like, well, because they won't receive it if
Yeah.
they're not willing to ask.
With Moses, it was given to him to see like every particle of the earth, or something like that, and all these things. And that's what his account really stood out because of all these things. Just seeing all these details, and like, how many other prophets are you aware of who have had that experience of being able to see all,
right,
the creation of the world, and kind of the whole history of the earth and things like that? I'm only aware of
the
Moses.
one. Yeah,
and he's
really?
the one who his account was so prevalent because of that. And so if someone else has had that experience, I would love to know about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And because I mentioned like President Nickdorf, I don't want to give him, because this is going, I don't want to give him like I'm giving him a bad rep or anything. It's just in his education, it makes sense what he believes in my opinion. And so when he feels that it's an absolute truth to him, that's what he knows, and so I have to really, you have to really see them as doing the best that they can, the leaders, and that there are things that they haven't questioned. And you don't have to say there are things that they don't know, because we don't know what they know. We don't know what they don't know. But you can say maybe there's things they haven't questioned, and also maybe there's things that God hasn't told them it's okay for them to share. So those are things that help me when it's like, okay, it's okay to give them grace, and it's okay to still trust them as leaders of the church, and it's okay to know that they're not going to know everything. And that's something that is known knowledge, that they don't know everything, and it's okay. And they can still lead the church and not know everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those are the things that have helped me stay, because I know a lot of people get into conspiracies and then they're like, why isn't the church doing this too? Like, why aren't they seeing this? And it's like, you have to, if you want to stay, and it's
led by people. They're led by humans. And so
with education, and the leaders are highly educated. And so they know what they were taught, and they know
the whole stance on COVID, that was kind of trying. It was just like, what?
That was really
especially with the after effect of all that. And we kind of look back on that now, and we're kind of like, what? And so that was kind of trying right there. But
that was really rough.
It's led by imperfect people, but we still support them.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, okay, I can either base my testimony on the prophet being perfect, or I can base my testimony on Christ being perfect, and that the prophet is allowed to do whatever he needs to do to lead the church through tribulation. And that might look different from what my opinion is, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and if I base my testimony on the prophet being perfect, and maybe one day he makes a mistake, or a mistake in my mind or something, not that he did make a mistake, I'm just saying, I was called an apostate for trying to explain this. And on Facebook, I'm like, I am not. I'm trying to say that if you trust in the Lord first, then you know that whatever the prophet is doing is for the benefit of the church in the long run, like whatever that means. And so I lost my train of thought, but yeah, the
church is perfect, but the in it are not.
Right.
So that's the major thing.
And it's okay to believe that the prophet is leading the church under the direction of God, and to also know that he's not perfect and he's not all-knowing. And that's like, I think it's really hard for people to accept that. Because they want to trust him 100%, and that almost to the point where he is maybe perfect in their minds. And if you do that, then you'll leave eventually, because one day,
I remember in seminary, like, that was something that we were always encouraged to do, is never be afraid to pray about something that the prophet said. And that's something we should never ever be afraid to question.
Right.
Yeah, they are open to. We should be willing to question,
to ask, to make sure that you're turning to Heavenly Father for it, and because I think that the leaders are doing the best that they can, and I think that they are being guided by God, and I think that they will only be guided to do certain things according to what God allows them to do, basically. Because and so for whatever reason, I believe that it was the right thing for them to lead the church the way they did during 2020. Because that was how the church needed to be led through that tribulation. That's how I feel. And if I were to pin them as perfect, then I would lose my testimony, because they let me me down according to my opinions, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that sets you up for so much more heartbreak and disappointment when you view them as being perfect and all of a sudden they're not.
Right.
And,
right.
That'd be so hard, Yeah.
And so you've got to let them figure it out and do it the way that they're doing it. And it is always made right by God, no matter what. And that's what you have to trust. If this is God's church, then he makes all things right, no matter what. And then again, sorry, I keep repeating myself because
you're fine. Sure, you want to kind of catch up where you left off, and
and I want
retrace your steps and be like, okay, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So I know where you're going.
I want to make sure I'm not being anti the church at all. Like, I want to make sure I'm covering my ground to make sure people know that I'm not trying to say, because like I said, I was called an apostate for trying to say I trust God first and then I trust the prophet, and they were like, you're an apostate. I'm like,
that's the foundation.
I know.
The iron rod is the word of God. It's not the prophet. It's the word of God. And that's what I'm constantly saying in churches. It's people can just kind of read the scriptures and not be holding on whatsoever. They're just going through the motions and
right
stuff like that. And so it's for holding on to the iron rod, the word of God. It's about personal revelation. That's personal revelation, feeling that connection. If I'm just going through and just reading for the sake of reading, without trying to really get understanding,
it's checklist. Yeah.
That would be kind of walking next to it, but not really holding on to it for me.
Right. Yeah.
So it's all about that connection. So that personal connection and relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you you trust Christ first, and that he leads the church, then you can know that it's it's okay. It's okay for things to happen that you don't agree with. It's okay for things to happen the way they do because of that. So and the iron rod thing, like, I've never felt more security in that phrase than recently, because it's like, okay, I do feel connection when I read the scriptures, and when I read the Book of Mormon too. It's like if I can just hold on to that and my prayer, then like I can stay. You know what I mean? Like it can be okay. So I just love hold to the iron rod, and that the iron rod is the word of God. And then I love that you added and your personal revelation at the same time. So that's good.
So I always like that, because I look at the scriptures as my own personal journal. Okay, my own personal journal, just being able to pass that on to my kids and write about my relationship and my experiences. That for me is just as important as the Book of Mormon or in the Bible as anything else, because this is real. This is stuff happening to me. And so we have the Bible because people were doing exactly that. They were writing down their own experiences and passing them on to their children. And I always like to just imagine for a second, if I had 10 generations of ancestors who all wrote their experiences. And so I have just a small handful of a few ancestors who wrote their experiences and the miracles that they saw, and coming to the church. And I've got a good 7 generations. My family's been part of the church for 7 generations.
Yeah.
And so I wish all 7 generations wrote in journals and, to share on, but that's very, very few.
You get a lot of information from that. Yeah.
But imagine what kind of strength and power that would be to our children,
Yeah.
Huge. And so I'm all about that. And so I'm not saying it replaces anything else like that, but it just adds to it. And if everything that should be written were written, the world itself could not contain all of the scriptures that should be written, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah. That makes sense. That's really cool. That makes me want to write in my journals.
Yay!
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's so much I love family history and kind of getting into stuff like that. And
that's so good. I need to get into that.
Very important stuff. And there's so many kind of really special moments where, as we learn about our ancestors and where they came from, like you can feel them helping us from beyond the veil. They get excited about this stuff. And, oh wow, I want to show you this and I want to show you that. And
that's so cool.
They're here to help us. And it's really fascinating just kind of going through all that stuff. And I think that's kind of one of my little dreams that I've always wanted to do, is write children's books on my ancestors. And so I started one like forever ago on little Verna, my great grandma. And I started, she was one of the writers in my family. And she's got like a great big book full of stories of just her life, but it's not really illustrated. It's not very kid friendly or anything like that. And so I just took a few segments out of it and just illustrated them and put them into a little story. And,
that's amazing.
And so I was like, wow,
that's so cool.
Yeah, I just wish
you could totally make a business out of that by doing it for other people's ancestor stories too.
Yeah, that's
that'd be so cool.
An idea right there. And like everyone's got a story. And with this particular great grandma, she has got a list 30 feet long of all of her living descendants. Okay. And so I looked at that and was like, wow, that is a list 30 feet long of people who would love to have a story of her, as a little child, like something to tell their kids,
that's
illustrated
so
story.
Cool.
That's 30 feet long, would be interested in seeing that book, that little children's book. And and then after that, oh well, you know what? I've got this other ancestor, and so it's kind of this ongoing thing. And this is an idea I've had that I'm, not scared of sharing, because everyone's got a story, and
that's amazing.
Inspire other people to do the kind of similar things.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and with like, when you become conscious of something, that's when you can really see it and feel it. And so if you're becoming conscious of your ancestors, then you're going to feel them more. Like, that's a huge barrier is that we're just not thinking about them, and
for sure. Yeah. That's striking a chord right there. We become so much more sensitive to things when we actually kind of bring them into our thoughts. We become conscious of them. And so it's kind of that way when it comes to, watching movies, when we are aware that different movies are trying to kind of manipulate us. I think they did that with Strange World, and you can see that they're trying to do product placement and trying to push their politics and things like that.
Every movie I watch now, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Like every single one.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of I was going to tell you earlier, like you had all these experiences kind of going through your life, and it kind of made it sound like you were very prepared for having your eyes open to all this stuff. And it's like, wow, I had all these little puzzle pieces all throughout my life, but now they're coming together and actually forming a picture. And
right.
It actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I've been on this journey that I've been kind of following a trail of breadcrumbs that I never was aware of.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
This is a trail that's going somewhere.
Elementary, and be like, and it also makes me realize that I'm just the type of person that wants what is purely true. Like, and that's why I get so frustrated when things are confusing, because it's like, what is the truth in it? Where's that truth? And then I get frustrated when people have different opinions, because I'm like, well, isn't truth true? Like, and then people call everything an opinion, and I'm like, come on. But so, I don't know how I was going with that, but
you're fine. Yeah. I was thinking about the scriptures and how much of the scriptures are devoted to kind of pointing out different symbols and helping us to understand like symbols and parables and things like that. They're all over the place in the scriptures. And so much of that ends up, relating, and, we take those skills of being able to recognize the symbols, and we can take those into all these other areas of our life. And so,
And then I was thinking when we were talking about being mindful of things, that's a big reason why you need to keep Christ in the forefront of your thoughts, because then you can feel him more because you're thinking about him. And yeah, because if you're not thinking about him, he doesn't feel like he's there, because you have to be consciously aware to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we're encouraged to pray always, right?
Yes.
Pray always, so we
and
can
then
put the Savior first in our lives.
Right. And then when you do the sacrament, you're agreeing to always keep him on your heart and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And when we can consciously be aware of that, and we can view the world through that filter, and so that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because I think there's been times recently where, you get distracted with life and you feel more depressed than usual. And then
those times where you feel the most separated, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
yourself, because you haven't been putting him first in your life. And
then you feel guilty when you try to pray. And then it's like, there's times where I'm like, okay, I know that God wants to talk to me. I know that he's there. There's a lot of things I don't know in the church and everything, but if I do know something, I know that somebody's listening and somebody's communicating with me, and I know that I have a father, and I know that I have a savior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those are things that I really hold on to, and I'm starting to feel more about the scriptures being true. And it's okay. It's okay to say, I've told myself recently, it's okay to say I don't know it's true. I don't know for sure 100% that this is the true church or whatever, but I am choosing to believe it. And I know that pieces of it are definitely I do know that pieces of it are true. But for now, since I don't know everything, I choose to believe in it, because it does bring me peace. And it does.
That's faith. That's faith right there. It's kind of, faith means not having all the answers. But that doesn't mean you don't have any answers at all. You still have some answers. And so the scriptures talk about that as an anchor, right? An anchor of our soul, and that foundation, building upon a sure foundation.
Yeah.
And, there's so much more I want to talk about that, because I'm going to be that's my whole topic on and in the meet and greet coming up in Draper is there's this really crazy cool concept, and I'm going to just talk about it for 40 minutes or so because I've got an article that is a total game changer. Okay. And this article is a peer-reviewed article. Okay. It's from the College of, it is from the Journal of College Science Teaching. Okay.
Okay.
And, the Journal of College Science Teaching, and it says, science doesn't prove anything. Okay. Science doesn't prove anything. And that's it. And so, and they're like, it starts off by talking about how we should have a little advisory at the very label, an advisory label on every science textbook saying, we don't know the answer to everything. This is the best of our knowledge. Okay. So I don't want to spoil everything about what we're talking about. But it's a really game changer, but it's a really good door opener. It's a great door opener, because you've got people like your husband over there who's, oh, well, science says this and science says that.
Yeah.
And he's under this understanding of there being proof to all these things like that, right? And this is mainstream science, like the top elite of mainstream science, coming out and saying, we don't know the answer to everything. This is all guesswork,
Wow.
And, it gets even stronger language than that. And the part that really hits me is this part that they talk about how they want to get rid of the words true, correct. They want to get rid of that out of our vocabulary entirely. And so I'm just what? And so that really hits me, because it's I keep seeing the biblical illustration of waves being tossed upon the sea, right? And so James chapter 1 verse 5, it talks about praying, and then right after it talks about praying, I think it's in verse 6 or something, it talks about he who wavereth shall be tossed upon the waves of the sea. So there's this whole concept of being tossed about by every wind of doctrine, right? Every That's what happens when you don't have a foundation. And so, and so this whole science article is saying it's trying to eliminate any kind of foundation everywhere. And it's just so strongly worded. And so it's just like, wow. and because that is just like
That's exactly
anti. It is
totally.
That's why President
Nelson. Oh,
President Uchtdorf talked about absolute truth in his whole talk, and that's why President Kimball talked about the same thing too. Absolute truth, and
but both said absolute truth is flat Earth. They both use it or is not flat Earth. They both use it.
It's the concept of what they're going for, and so I really catch that.
So it's okay. Sorry, it's okay because they're using it as an example because universally people believe that's an absolute truth. So
and so it's not really about their example; it's more about what they were trying to say. And
okay.
The major thing why I kind of point to that, and so I really what they said about there being such a thing as absolute truth.
Right.
It's possible to know between truth and error. And that's. And
I really appreciate you saying that because that's something that has bothered me. And so you're saying it's the concept of it. And President Nelson, I was going to say it for some reason it bothered me at first when he said this, but now, and especially with what you said, it makes sense because he in the last of conference last time he said truth is not relative. It is truth is truth, and we embrace all the truth that we can, like as a church. Whatever. And so
people can say things in kind of human kind of ways, and we can have kind of a hard time communicating, but it's the concept, the spirit of what he's saying.
Totally. Yes. Okay. I love that you said that. That'll help me in future days as I listen to them. What is this? Don't listen to the words as much, but listen to what he's trying to say. What is this? What is the message he's trying to say?
Because his message isn't about the shape of the earth. That's not right. That's not it. That's
it was an example. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not what he's reaching for. That's not what the whole thing is about. It's really about the concept of moral relativism is the term.
And you really can know absolute truth. And the scriptures tell us you can know the truth of all things.
Yeah.
Spirit. Yeah. Which I love. And I love that you were talking about that article that wants to muddy the grounds of truth. And President Nelson comes out right now and says, truth is not relative.
Yeah. There really is that spiritual warfare going on. There's that battleground. And when I saw the article talking about it, it's just like, wow, things just got real, really real. And so, because you could see the war front, just all over right there. And,
totally, yeah. And it's like Satan the adversary revealing himself in that. It's like that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to muddy all the truth so that you never know what is true. And that's what I refuse to participate in the mud, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to know what the truth is,
Yeah. So I'm kind of going back to Alma 32 here. It's about kind of building that foundation upon, layer upon layer, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. And then that kind of foundation gets more solid over time. And so we've got building blocks. And so, faith is like a seed here, and it does grow, and eventually it does bear fruit, and we can know those things. And it's kind of coming down to that.
I love that you said that. Eventually it will bear fruit, and we can know those things.
Yeah, and I liked how you pointed out how we can know the truth of all things, and that's kind of that was one of my favorite scriptures right there.
I love that too. And it's by the Spirit you can know the truth of all things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not saying it's impossible to learn these things.
And that's one of the reasons why if you're bothered by something a prophet or a leader has said, you can, and I have tried to do this recently because I've never been bothered by what they said until recently because I have controversial opinions to them and stuff. Yeah. And so when I do pray and try really hard to hear what is true from what they're saying, I can find it, and I can have confidence in them as leaders again, after questioning and being concerned by what they're saying. I always turn it back so that I give them the benefit of the doubt and stuff. So
yeah. And so I think so long as we are firmly planted in the basics there, we've got that testimony in Christ. We still have a testimony of the prophet, even though we don't fully understand everything.
It's changed slightly from he's all knowing and perfect to, oh, it's okay for him to not be all knowing and not be perfect
Yeah.
and still be the leader of the church and do
We
a
can-
good
I
job.
think Jonah's a nice example of that, right? So,
And
yeah.
Joseph Smith is too.
Yeah.
Like, Smith was not perfect at all.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And the Lord used everything that Joseph Smith did to better the church, even if it was, a mistake. And that's where I was called an apostate, because people thought I was saying what Prophet was doing was a mistake. I wasn't saying that. And it's that even if he made a mistake, who doesn't, not this, it's just, even if I believe that Christ is the leader of the church, meaning that he will use that mistake to better the church, whatever it is. So it takes a lot to come to these conclusions, but it's important to me because I do not want these things to take me away from the church. So I kind of refuse to let it. So.
Okay. Well, it sounds like your baby's awake there.
Yeah, did you good?
I've really enjoyed talking with you, and
yes,
this has been awesome.
You.
I've definitely, I felt that.
Okay, good.
It's beneficial to me. I've learned things, and
and I've learned things, and it's just nice to talk freely.
Yes, I 100%
Thank you.
Agree. So,
yeah,
if you've got another thing you'd like to talk about in the future, let me know, and we can do this again. I really enjoy that.
Hi, sweetie. Let's for sure do it again. I'd love to talk to your wife too.
Yeah. I'll make. Yeah,
she's not wearing a shirt, but
she's doing that's okay. But yeah, my wife's doing a field trip right now with my daughter, and so.
1 second, Becca. Yeah. Okay.
But we'll have her here next time. She'll be with me when we go to Draper. Maybe you can still make it. I don't know.
I know. But, I really, really, really want to, and I might not be able to be there very long, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
That's
but
okay.
It's only a 25-minute drive, so I'm like, I just need to go, and so I'm trying to decide: do I go at the beginning, or should I go like in the middle, or should I go at the end so I can like talk to everybody? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. But if I don't make it for your
my whole it's going to be on video, so
you're going to record it. Okay, good.
It'll be one worth listening to because there's so much to it that it's just like, wow.
So, if you record it, then maybe I will go at the end so I can make friends, because then I can go to my party at the beginning, the family party, and anyway.
Well, they got dinner. We're doing like a potluck there, and so it'll be fun.
Yeah, I really want to go because I'm like, I need to find these people that I felt like don't exist.
And judging just from last time, there was no kind of feelings of animosity towards members of the church.
Different religions,
that was totally cool. There was
most people are Christian, so that's helpful.
But I think there might have been one person who kind of came up to me and said, "Hey, you guys need to really look into this kind of stuff about Joseph Smith." And
totally,
there's one person like that, but that was it. And out of like 200 people who showed up, which was amazing for Utah. I'm like, this is really happening here.
200, you said?
Yeah, there was like 200 people there. It was amazing. And you'd never believe that out of here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy cool. So,
and there is controversy about everything, and so I've had to Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and everything, and it's like, you just got to pray really hard about it. Yeah, pray really hard to get unbiased, clear, understanding, because it doesn't have to be, Joseph Smith didn't have to be perfect either, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I might not understand a lot of these other concepts, but I do understand these primary concepts, and so don't let go of what you know for what
exactly. Yep. Good. Yeah. I'd love to talk to you guys again. So thank you so much.
I loved it. Yeah. So
and I'll probably see you on the 10th. You guys.
I hope so.
So. I'll show up at some point.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's totally free. So we're just happy to have people there. So
that's exciting. I can't believe there are 200 people.
Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen this year, but
it's thanks to Dave Weiss. He is working so hard to people to connect.
Yeah, and he's one of those people, right? It's like so much of this stuff just kind of falls into our laps, and it's just like this is kind of their wanting to get out. It's it's there, and so he's like, there's so much of this stuff that. He never imagined himself doing that, forever ago. And but the information just falls into our laps. And
I get, maybe that's part of the reason I'm discouraged about it, because I'm not talking about it. So, but if anybody I do like a mommy Instagram. So if anybody wants to follow me on there, I do like mindset shifts to help you think more, be more positive in motherhood. But it's real.
My wife loves that stuff.
Oh yeah, but it's realistic. So I always address the first initial struggles and then what's the mindset to get out of it. Because I think a lot of times people just jump straight to the positive, and it's like you're neglecting the original feeling. Like there's a real
feeling. We don't want to mask the problem, and
right.
So if we don't address the problem, then we can't really see a resolution. Sometimes it can fix itself, but we don't want to mask. We want to fix problems. We don't want to just sweep them under the rug.
Yep. So. And motherhood comes with so much self-destruction. You just naturally turn things towards yourself, and you're heightened anxiety and worried. And so, I don't know.
Especially when family members are coming by, and my wife is always kind of afraid of anytime someone comes to visit. Oh, my house has got to be perfect. So, that kind of happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to be a parent and a mom and postpartum and all. And just after having kids, your hormones are totally different, and you're different. You're totally different. So my thing is called on Instagram. It's called Kim.realmotherhood. So I don't know if anyone wants to because
I'll definitely send my wife that way because she really likes that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I don't have any flat earth stuff yet, but I'm wondering I might start doing something. We'll see. But
okay, we always love finding other people's treasures and on that, and kind of because you've got a lot of great insights, and
thank you. Thank you, and I feel the same about you, and I really appreciate talking. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Until next time then.
Yep. Until next time. See ya.
See ya.
If you haven't noticed, I love hearing different people's stories about how they discovered the flat earth and how it has affected their lives. If you're a flat earther and would like to share your story, please let me know about it and we can make it happen. Thank you all for watching, everyone. Until next time. With a special thank you to the Flat Earth Clock app for making it super easy to find flat earthers near you.